Nasty. All right. Okay. According to progress, welcome to tonight's shir for Likutey Moharan. We counted 48 days. And so it obviously means that we're not going to have a shir on Mitzvah Shabbos, because Mitzvah Shabbos is Yom Tov. Either as it may, tonight's shir is dedicated Lilo Nishmas Uri Zohar, Rav Uri Zohar, Rav Tzaddik Uri Zohar. It is extremely important to speak about him, and basically explain in the nutshell why it is so important that we speak about him and who he was and what the significance of that we can see, that we can tell of this particular person. In order for anybody from Western civilization to understand, to comprehend, to have some kind of an inkling. Just 1 second, excuse me for hiding my face. I just want to clean the lens, so make sure it's clean. For people to understand, to comprehend who this particular person was, at the time, during the 50s and 60s and the beginning of the 70s, take Steven Spielberg and Bob Dylan and George Carlin, and plus, I don't know, any thinker that you can think, that influences the thinking of the society, and roll them all into one. And that person was a result. This is his significance was during the 50s and 60s. Basically, Israel was in transition from, the fire and brimstone and motivation and excitement of creating a state, coming back to a socialist country, and where it was still very much influenced at the time by the socialist countries of the world, not the communist ones, in the sense that it was democratic. Yes, you can vote for whoever you want, and whoever you voted to, got in. But Ben Gurion, for instance, he was very Putin-like. It's like I don't say Mamish Putin, but it was close. So you get a picture of the kind of. Let me just, excuse me for changing in other words, it was a very authoritarian regime. It wasn't totalitarian, but it was very authoritarian. And things were very simple, things were very basic, things were very, and then came, 1967 with the 6-Day War, with this incredible miracle. And suddenly this country, from being and also ran and somebody, a country that was on life support and constant danger, not just physically, it's physically still now, but psychologically, it was, very much under the threat of enemies from all over, the Soviet Union being on the other side. In 1967, with the 6-Day War, everything changed in the sense that suddenly Israel and Israelis have come to consider themselves invincible. And they treated themselves that way. I mean, they regarded themselves that way. And they were regarded by, by Jews around the world, by nations in the world as, like, it's like, wow, we didn't mind you having a Jewish state, under the threat of being an island in a given moment. But now, you've gotten too big for your britches kind of thing, But what happened to the Israeli society in the 60s and during the early 70s is that once the country was established and a tremendous amount of serious nefesh was required from the people of Israel, just for the day-to-day living. So you had what they were actually doing at that time, the kind of that's not the yeah. So here comes, and during the 50s, they had this the army came up with the idea of having these kind of like entertainment groups. Every branch, not every branch, but some branches of the army would have, their own group with soldiers, girl soldiers, boy soldiers, and some musicians, and will come. They have their own songs, they have skits, whatever it is. And Uri Zohar joined that 1956, that first, and just out of the blue, during the very beginning of the 60s, they had, they made some international movies about, about Israel. The Exodus was made, if you remember, Leon Uris's Exodus, and they had that, and here goes 1964. This young guy, brash, 100% confident, and makes a totally avant-garde movie with absolutely nothing to do with anything. I mean, this is a country, socialist country with, you did what you were told, whatever it is, and it goes, totally, and that movie went ahead and won, the prize of the the critics in the Cannes Festival in France. It's just a guy who never made a movie before in his life. They said, you're going to make a movie. You take a movie. You take an 8mm or Super 8, whatever it is, with your friends, whatever it is. No, the first thing that he did was call a press conference and tell everybody, from now on, I'm going to be a movie director. Okay? And he makes a movie. And he continued not only to make movies, but these are like the best movies ever made in Israel since then. I mean, ever. And the thing that was so meaningful about it is that Israel was empty. Suddenly, okay, now we're heroes. Now, we can do anything and nobody can do anything to us. So what are we going to do with this? Where are we going to take this? So suddenly Israel became, Israelis felt themselves empty and with nowhere to go. Okay, so now we're heroes. Until now, we had to fight for our lives. Now that we are the heroes, we are the Goliath, what the heck are we going to do? And he made movies that brought this to the fore, this kind of emptiness, this kind of vulgarity, this kind of, with him, the director, being the actor. In other words, the one whose life is empty, the one who's ridiculous, the one who is like with nowhere to go. He was the funniest guy around. He's the one who defined what stand-up comedy was in Israel at the time. And a lot of different things that he did. But the thing that people did not catch at the time was that he was searching. The reason why these movies were so good is because they were real. There was a world, he was acting out, but he wasn't acting. It was a real searching for meaning, searching for. And until that time, you have to understand, religious people for Fry Israel, until that time, was meaningless fringe group that made this noise, this buzzing noise at the side, and basically only interfered with things going on. You want to have fun. Somebody said, no, you cannot do it on Shabbos, and you have to eat kosher, whatever it is. So here comes, in other words, they're totally irrelevant. And here comes the number one torchbearer of Israeli culture, modern, what the Beatles were in England, he and his guys were here. He basically defined the culture of the entire era. And one day he says, I'm becoming religious.
Oh, this is famous
He
actor that became from.
Yeah, he passed away today. Uri Zohar.
Huh?
Uri Zohar.
Oh,
Harav Uri Zohar passed away today.
oh,
Yes, so this year is dedicated to this is Neshama. He decided he will become religious. Besides the fact that he could out-argue anyone. I mean, forget about it. He could argue out, it's, with, being smart, being incisive, being whatever it is. And so suddenly, Yiddishkeit altogether, remember, you're talking about a nation that really spiritually has nowhere to go. There was no high tech, there was no this, we didn't have natural resources, whatever it is, we were dependent on America, all those different things, but we were heroes, all right? But that's it. So what is that to do? except Neil, but there's nothing else for us to do. And he made movies about that. And at that point in time, that's it. There's nothing more to look here for. And he turned around and single-handedly turned Yiddishkeit from something so anachronistic and dusty to something so cool, intriguing, beguiling, and mysterious. Boom, at the snap of a finger. There were, just think about it, the guys playing hooky from high school to go to Yeshiva to find out what it was about. It was like, it's totally unbelievable.
Was he the one that was also an Israeli Air Force pilot?
No.
Somebody.
No, he's Uri Zohar is Uri Zohar. Amazing. And from that point, the minute he went into Yiddishkeit, the man was learning Torah for 47 years, day and night, unbelievable Talmid Chacham, always available to everybody, always like, I totally, it's only the end of his life he was finally Zecher to find out about Rabbeinu. I am in the habit of saying, without any authority whatsoever, and I can be absolutely, maybe probably completely wrong, that had Uri Zohar found out about Breslin in the very beginning of his way, the Mashiach already would have been here. And the Tshuva movement started in America after him. Once it became, in vogue, there were people, obviously, in America that were, Rabbi Rosenfeld and whatever it is, there were all people that are there. But when Uri Zohar made it, the Tshuva movement in Israel became a thing. It became a thing in America as well. And B'kitzur, he changed everything. He changed the paradigm. And his passing is it is what it is, but it's the Haviv of Avdolis, it's like when you ask them, like, where were you when you heard that JFK was shot, or where were you when you heard that John Lennon was shot? The Haviv of Avdolis. It's the same kind of shock to the system, because it seemed so monolithic. So, somebody that always will be here. That's he defined the era. So from both ends of the scale, from the secular side, and actually he was the one that when he was secular, he created the League for the Prevention of Religious Coercion. In other words, so the religious people will not coerce the secular people to keep Shabbos or to eat kosher or anything like that. He came from there, all the way from being Ayid Tzaddik. I absolutely have no idea how many tens or hundreds of thousands of, I don't know how many Baalei Tshuva there are, but whatever it is, his influence is immeasurable. Okay, so we said that after we explain the ascension of all the oilers, when a person guards himself from bad thoughts, puts good thoughts into his heart, he's zecher to do good actions, he is mekabel all malchus shamayim on himself. This elevates the malchus, and when the malchus is elevated, the bina is elevated. The malchus is the daughter, the bina being the mother, is that right? And if a person has damaged the malchus, what he needs to do, he needs to do tshuva. And tshuva is the same process. Is toshuv hey, the malchus without connection to the bina, without connection to the seicha, without connection to godliness, is annotated by the letter daled. Daled is in the root of the letter daled is dolavania, is poor and impoverished. And the idea is that what is a hey? A hey is a daled that has a little yud inside, a little dot inside it. So the way now this says a hey is the Kohen says it was daled, now it became hey. Became hey means that you're connecting the daled into the malchus, which is the yud, putting the yud, what the kavon of the bria is, you're connecting it to the daled, and it becomes a hey. Tshuva is the letters of toshuv, hey. You turn it, you return. No. The daled is toshuv hey. It means that you're turning the daled into a hey. So toshuv hey, tshuva is toshuv hey, and we said this is p'chinas Sarah Menush or Sarah. P'chinas Shara is a song. The yud is 10 mina negina, and so forth and so on. So now we hold on by Sif Zayin. This constitutes the aspect of tzitzis, hainu tcheles. Tzitzis, as we know, classically is white strings with, according to different shittas, some says half a string, some say a whole string, some say 4 strings of blue, of tcheles, of very, very deep tcheles. So the tzitzis is, the tcheles in the tzitzis is that aspect of judgments which exists in the malchus. It says tcheles, the achli kol and the shatzi kol, that eats everything and destroys anything. In other words, the judgments in the malchus, they annihilate the wicked. We said before, what is the difference between the malchus is a daled, when it's not fully formed, and when it's a hay? So we said that a daled is when it's basically that the brash, authoritarian, police-like aspects of malchus is evident, and it's not totally connected to the reason why it exists. In other words, we said it's like a police group that didn't hear from their commander what their mission is. So they know that they're police people, right? And they go in the street and they find people that are misbehaving. And what they do is they beat them up or whatever it is they do to them. Okay? That's the role of the malchus. The malchus, when the malchus is just by itself, it's not connected to the chokhmah, not connected to the bina, not connected to the sechel, the commander is not there. All it knows is just to behave brutally and with great amount of force. Now, if you connect, this is the tcheles in the tzitzis. This is the role of the tcheles. It needs to have that ability. If you connect it to the seichel, you connect it to the commander, commander says, listen, we have a situation, all right? Yes, we need to keep the order, but we have to make sure the situation doesn't get out of hand. All kinds of different kind of calculations. There's a political cheshbon going here. So, in other words, you can't just see somebody misbehaving and go take, the baton and just, hit him over the head. I mean, you can't, but you're not supposed to do that. What we're supposed to do is you have to understand that we don't want to get all the people into a frenzy. And therefore, if there's somebody who was totally, out of line, whatever it is, we take them out. We arrest them, whatever it is, but basically what we want to do, we want to control the situation. We don't want to just go ahead and start beating people over the head. That's not what we want to do.
Didn't Rabbeinu say that we have to be careful about being overly passionate in our Yiddishkeit, meaning in our Lahavut?
Yes, we are. So that particular aspect of the Malchus is something which is totally necessary. This is the koach of being totally necessary, and it's being put under control with the intelligence that controls it, which is basically, in a way, you can say that it's something that operates on both ends of things. In other words, don't get out of hand. On the other hand, don't fall asleep either. So from that point of view, you're absolutely correct. So that was saying that it is through the revelation of the Malchus in holiness. So the Malchus is going to be annihilated and eradicated by the force of the judgments that the Malchus have. In other words, you can't have policemen without guns anymore. The Bobbies in England, they used to have that, they wouldn't go with guns anymore. I don't think that's the case anymore. No. So in other words, that ability to met out judgments is an incredibly important factor and facet of the Malchus. So in the future, with the Malchus, the Kedusha is going to be totally revealed. That power within him, within the Malchus to met out judgments, will eradicate the Malchus Sitra. However, Am Yisrael that is connected, that are adhered to the Malchus de Kedusha through their good deeds. They are the ones that elevated her. They are the ones that illuminated her. They are the ones that gave it the expression. They will get chayos from the Malchus. In other words, the Malchus de Sitra will be eradicated, but from the very same facet, Am Yisrael that are dvekim b'kedusha will get tremendous amount of chayos from it. You who are connected to Hashem Elokeichem, in other words, you are connected to the Malchus, Hashem Elokeichem, Elokim is the name of judgments. That you are connected to the judgments, that tcheles, the achli kol v'shatzikol, that same tcheles that eats everything and annihilates everything, and still you're connected this totally radioactive and acerbic aspect of the Malchus, which is the tcheles, but being that you're connected to the Malchus, not only that it doesn't decimate you, not only that it does not eradicate you, but the other way around. It actually gives you a life force. Because the main life force actually comes from the Malchus. How do we know that the life comes from the Malchus? It says, "V'chinas David Melech Yisrael." What does it say? How does the song go? David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'Kayim. So David is Melech Yisrael, which is the Malchus of Hashem. Chai v'Kayim, the Malchus, the Chaim comes from the Malchus. V'zeh Pchinas Kala, Chasen and Kala. Kala is that also Kala is also from that on one hand, that's the part that contains, that gives the vessel for the Chasen to create a family. And now Kala is also a word that, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very upset with Moshe, with Am Yisrael, and he says, let me be, and I will make them kala, and I will annihilate them. Kala means the chalot, to finish, to eradicate, to totally wipe out. So it's a word that, on one hand, when it's together with its husband, it's a kala, it's a keli, it's a vessel to receive. When it is aimed outside, it becomes a kala. It becomes something that eradicates all those that stand against it. The achli kala, the shatzi kala, eats everything and now. So kala here is from the shorish of kili, of finishing off, of destroying.
It's not the same letters as challah, the bread.
No. It's the same letters, however, of kala vatechal nefesh David. David the Melech was yearning, pining for his brother. So klois nefesh, you're waiting until your nefesh finishes it off. You can't wait, like you're waiting all the way to the very end. I'm going to eradicate all the goyim, because Am Yisrael are strengthening themselves to be mitzamtzem, to constrict the light of their excitement, because the natural excitement is infinite, because Am Yisrael are pieces of infinity. But they're forcing themselves to hold back, so everything should be, with one step at a time. And they are being misgaber to run away from bad thoughts and to do good thoughts. They're zercha to good actions. With this, they reveal that they're mekabel olach l'shamayim, as we say. This is the tikkun of the lower house, the Bais Tachton. That's the Malchus. With this, there's zercha to miskan the Bais Elyon, which is the Bina. Yetz Hashem, the last counting, B'ezrat Hashem, of the sphere will be tomorrow night. And B'ezrat Hashem, Sunday, Moshe Shabbos, we're going to have the 50th gate. That's the Bina. We've been working basically for 49 days now on perfecting our Pchinas Malchus. And then we are when we get there, when we get to the Bina, what happens is we are zechet to get the supernal Torah from the Pchinas Atik. We said that there is a Torah that we learn now, and there's a Torah that will become known in the future. Today, it is not possible with human intelligence to perceive this Torah, because we understand by definitions. And the Torah from Atikas Timor is undifferentiated, it's undefined, it's eternal, and it's infinite.
We don't even know what the Tagim are.
No, that's right. So that's why Am Yisrael will get the chas from the mountains, but the Goyim, they don't overcome their bad thoughts. They're not even trying to. Not only this, but they also chase, outside chokhmas, secular chokhmas. Chokhmas don't lead anywhere. They want to know absolutely everything which is beyond the madrega. I want to understand this. I actually had somebody turn to me, an Italian guy, I don't know, young 28-year-old Italian guy, designer, and he said, I would like you to please teach me practical Kabbalah. That's nice to hear. But A, I don't know what it is. And B, even if I knew, I wouldn't teach it to you. With all due respect. But what about your behavior? What about your kalim? What about your meetings? That's not interesting. I want to know. I want it and I want it now. This is Riboy Or. Riboy Or, in other words, it's like this. The aspect of the malchus that annihilates and destroys and finishes off is Riboy Or. We said what we're doing is we are holding back, as you said before. We are being metzamtzem the light. We're making sure that we're not going overboard. With this, we create that much needed space for the midas to grow one step at a time. We get the light when the time is right, when everything is happening to us the way it's supposed to. And himself, when the time to get the Torah Tikas Timah, then we'll be able to get it. Why? Because the Rav explains in the Likutey Halachos, he explains that when you are sticking to the regimen of not going overboard, not looking beyond your madrega, and perfecting your midos, ultimately, you come to a state where you can just let it rip. And you don't have to worry about who you are. They give you a really crude example on that, right? When you want to teach a kid how to hit a baseball. So what you do is, you put a stick, you put the ball on top of it. What's it called? No, yeah, what's it? You put the ball on the baseball on the stick, and you go ahead and try to hit the ball, right? And they're busy with perfecting the swing and closing holes in the swing. And what is their approach and what is their stance and where are their legs and where they're this and where they're that, the whole thing. And when the time comes, they have perfected their ability to hit to such an extent that they no longer have to think about it. The only thing they need to do is just have to see the ball and trust their hands. That's it. Because if they have to think about technique at that particular point, everything happens much too fast. There's no way that they ever will. I mean, they have to be able to time a jet plane. I mean, they're so the Havlev of the Adol is the same thing as here. If you are trying to get the light which is above you, it means that somebody that has never picked up a baseball bat in his hand is up to face major league pitching. Good luck. Prepare your medical insurance. Just in case you get beamed or something. The idea is that when we are perfecting that so the chokhmah the malchus, when it is perfected, when it is that chelis is fully exposed, is as it were like live major league pitching. If you did your homework, if you did whatever it is you needed to do, controlled yourself, controlled your regimen, made your preparations, did polish your medicine, whatever it is, to whatever it is you needed to do, B'ezrat Hashem, then you can get the Torah of Torah Atikos Timor. So it says, "Vatechal nefesh David," and in other words, that it was yearning, was pining Nefesh David is the Malchus, V'Pchinas Tcheles, the Achli Kola, V'Shatzi Kola. And V'Zeh Pchinas Ruach Tzofan Etam L'Shem Kinosh David, that how did David HaMelech wake up at night? How did you know? He didn't have an alarm clock. So how did you know? So we said that there was a north wind that would blow, and he had his violins was over his head. The window was open to the north wind. North wind starts by Chatzos, and it would go through the strings of the Kinosh of David, and it will harmonize and wake him up. Ruach Tzofan, a northern wind, Pchinas Dinim, Vuras. This is where the left side, this is where it comes from. Tzofan is small. Pchinas Tcheles. The Negina comes from there. The Levim, Knaf Zmir Zvir Shaman. Dafka from the Tcheles. It's there. This is the source of Neis Moshe. This is where the music comes from. Zeh Pchinas Hey, as we said before, Neis Moshe. Daled Imyud. Daled is the four corners of the earth. Daled, four corners of the tzitzis, right? You have a beged with four corners. Zeh Miknaf Haaretz. And Miknaf Haaretz Mirot Shamanu, from the wings, from the edges of the land, we heard music. Means that the edges of the land, this is the four corners of the tzitzis. Zmir Shamash, this is Yud, this is also the Gina, Zmir Shaman, which means that when we are actually zeicha to perfect the Dalet, hold off from being overexcited, hold off, bad thoughts, inappropriate thoughts, and we are connecting it one step at a time to the Malchus. Ultimately, we are zeicha to this tikkun of Knaf Haaretz, when you have the Dalet, the four corners, the Tcheles, that regiment of wild SWAT team, which is in the Malchus, it is connected to the Yud, the Chochmah, to the Yud Minei Negina, and then the whole thing, instead of being destructive, gives you life force and singing. This is B'ezrat Hashem what we have achieved, each one according to his own madrega, his own way, during right now it's 48 days. It's Hashem. By the time that we get to Motzei Shabbos, it'll be the 50th day, and we will be zeicha each one according to his bechina to complete the Dalet with the Yud, and to be mashlim the Hey, and zeicha to a sermon in the Gina, this kind of music, this kind of perfection, this kind of zgula, of his galus, of Oraiso, the Atikos Timor, the Torah that comes from, the level which is the beyond. Hashem Yisbarach should help us. First of all, everybody should have a good Shabbos, and everybody should have a good Yom Tov. Obviously, Motzei Shabbos, there is no shir. In Mitzvah Hashem, we will meet again on Monday on a shir of Sipur Maisis. Thank you very much. I apologize for speaking so long, not letting anybody butt in.